Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Xu Qinduo. China's Chang'e-6 lunar module has successfully returned to Earth with the first ever samples from the moon's unexplored far side. China is the only country to have landed on the far side of the moon in human history. What were some of the technological challenges and breakthroughs from the historical mission? In what way will those samples help us understand the moon's origin and geological evolution? And what is the future plan of China's space industry and building a research base on the moon? Before we get started, let's first have a recap of the milestones in Chang'e-6 historic mission.
我们今天就是都满怀的这个心愿的送他走。
What a fantastic launch. We are on the way to the moon. Congratulations, Stas.
It's absolutely amazing.
4号注意，我是眼睛，下面组织实施月壤低晶球钻石材料。
钻石样品分离。
问题采样封装正常结束。
也许我们月球背面的样品能够1克抵1万克。
有些人说它像一个和平鸽。
遥取采样及密封正常，
这个路啊已经走通了。
国际机构联手共同。
Well, people always think that this mission is all about science. True. It's all about technology. True. And it's about human experience. It's about people.
Well, joining me today are Dr. Yuguang, Vice Chair at IAF Space Transportation Committee, and Sir Martin Sweeten, Executive Chairman at SSTL and Distinguished Professor of Surrey Space Centre, and Anastasia Medvedeva, Aerospace journalist and communicator, ambassador for Yuri's Night. Welcome to Dialogue. I will start with Stacy. If you look at the success of the return with samples from the far side of the moon of Chang'e-6, tell us what impressed you the most?
The most impressive is the incredible amount of attention that we're seeing for this mission around the world. For the first time, I guess, the whole world is celebrating this success, because previously we've had missions being celebrated in certain parts of the world, whereas a mission returning from the dark side of the moon, that's the first, and all of the scientists are cheering, all of the communicators are cheering, and even more, the cheering part are the students and the people, the young people who believe that space is their future. And seeing what China has just achieved means that there is so much more that we can do in space. We can reach the moon on different sides, and there is so much more research to be done. So this is truly a milestone, not just for scientists, but also for the young people around the whole world.
Well, Martin, as mentioned in the video clip, it's about technology, it's about the science, it's about the people. How do you evaluate the success of the mission of Chang'e-6?
Well, to land a spacecraft on the far side of the moon and to extract samples safely, to then bring them back up into orbit, bring them back to the to Earth orbit, and then to land them safely on the ground and to extract those their samples so that they can be analyzed, actually is a huge technological feat, because it involves a very, very wide range of different technologies, from communications to robotics, mechanics, as well as all the astrodynamics. So this is a really demanding mission, and it's fantastic to see that it has been successfully concluded. And it is the first time that we will get samples from the far side of the moon, and the far side of the moon is geologically very, very different from the near side, where we've had previously opportunities to get samples.
Yuguang, of course, as Martin said, that's a celebration of the technological, achievement here. I mean, what are the challenges, and how does the Chinese team overcome those challenges and make it possible?
Yes, of course. As Martin have already mentioned, there are so many difficulties and challenges for us. But the bigger the challenge is, the more return we can have. So being a technician, I always emphasize to the media that the lift off from the far side of the moon is the most challenging part. And also this success is so exciting. You know that lift off from another celestial body is very, it's already very difficult, but it's more difficult than the Chang'e-5 mission. During the Chang'e-5 mission, we can still get the support from our ground stations in Kashi, in Chang'e-6, and also in Argentina. But this time, we don't have these ground stations, and the only support we can have is the Magpie Bridge 2 data relay satellite. So we can only have one single station to determine its location, the latitude, the longitude of the landing point, and when it lifts off, we only have one chance to entering the right orbit. So this is the most challenging part and the most dangerous part of this mission. Of course, this is also the second soft landing of China and a human being on the far side of the moon. And return from the moon with the second cosmic velocity is also very, very challenging. So many difficult tasks.
Yes. Let me ask you, Yuguang, Chang'e-5, it lasted about 22 days, and this mission of Chang'e-6 is 53 days. Why the time difference here?
The public care about this question, but it's not a problem for the, that it is a manned mission, it is a robotic mission. So for a manned mission, it's quite different. We must think about the life support system of human being. But for a manned mission, usually we think about how economical it is. So we choose the trajectory to save the energy to the greatest extent. And also we get the most ideal or the most convenient window for the launch, for the return. So this is a very natural choice for all of us.
Okay, so simply the calculation of the energy saving, let's say.
Exactly.
So Martin, you talked about the far side of the moon. Previously, before I think Chang'e-4, we have landed as a human being on the near side of the moon. Why the far side of the moon is so difficult to reach?
Well, first of all, you can't see it. I think this is the key point. It's not visible from Earth, so we have to go into lunar orbit, and then it's obviously the spacecraft goes behind the moon, and we have to be able to communicate with it via relays, and those relays back to Earth. And of course, we also have more complex navigation because we have to be able to decide where to land the spacecraft and to ensure that it is a safe landing point and all the time maintain communications. Of course, this means increasingly we're reliant on robotics and autonomy. We will start to see the inclusion of AI techniques in trying to help us when the spacecraft is out of sight. But the biggest challenge, of course, is you can't see it. It's all happening behind the other side of the moon.
Well, of course, the samples, they secured is there's the South Pole Aitken basin, let's say a polar basin, part of this on the far side of the moon. Samples were collected in this part of the moon. Why the samples are more precious, or people say it's priceless. What does it mean? Why it's so important to our research, Martin?
Well, the far side of the moon, and I'm not an expert in lunar morphology, but the far side of the moon appears to be made up in a very different manner to the near side. So the geological construction of the lunar surface is very, very different. And so we need to understand what minerals are there, what is the structure. Does it give us insight into the early history of the moon, possibly early collisions with other solar system bodies? And so the importance is that the structure is so different from the near side, and this is the first opportunity we have to really investigate it. We've looked at it through orbiting satellites around the moon, and we can see that the contents are different, but we don't know exactly what they are. So this hopefully will give us considerable insight into the early formation of the moon, and particularly, how the solar system bodies impacted with it in the very early stages of the creation of the Earth and Moon.
Well, Stacy, you have been following, obviously, this international exploration or space exploration. But here, many countries, China is one of them, trying to reach the moon, of course, to get the samples from the far side, or, probably more interesting as long as it's possible. How do you compare the plans, the strength, and the development of their, let's say, lunar exploration, the project? China, Russia, US, India, etc., Japan, they all, European Union, of course, space powers there.
Let me take a look at this from the perspective of the people, right? We've seen so many years without a lunar landing or without any kind of lunar missions. And now suddenly this generation, the new generation, sees that the moon is possible. Not only social media is a good thing, but also space exploration. And then after we've seen the beginning of more lunar missions, we've seen a couple of failures. Not failures with not launching or not landing or not even reaching orbit. And this actually lands. It lands on the far side, and it also brings a sample back, which means that all of the people who have been following or even working in other countries on lunar missions, they see that it's in fact possible. And there has been a feeling that the moon might not be welcoming us or might not want us to be back to continue with the scientific exploration. But China shows us that again and again, if you persevere, if you try again, and you can even aim for the dark side of the moon, which for a lot of scientists is still impossible because we need to understand the amount of calculations and the technology, as the colleagues have mentioned, that it's never been done before. But here it is. So it means that everyone can try again and everyone can be successful in this. And also China is announcing its plans for a lunar mission or for a lunar settlement. And if we're talking about lunar settlements, of course, China has shown that it has the technology to reach the moon, which means that more countries will be willing to join and cooperate with China on the possible settlements that we're going to see in the future.
Stacy, as you said, are we seeing international, like a growing international interest in the exploration of the lunar surface, like from different countries besides China?
Yes, we've seen a couple of missions in the past years. We've seen a Russian mission last year. We've seen several missions coming from Japan. We've seen those from the United States. And the United States, in fact, are planning to have the Artemis mission, right, which keeps being postponed year after year. We're still hopeful that people are going to go, but they're still not going. And we've also seen India attempt. So the fact that so many countries at this stage are trying to reach the moon means that humanity is ready to make that next step, to make the big leap towards having something on the moon. But yet it's still uncertain who can land there and who can start building first, a settlement, be that, or an energy power station or whatever, any country decides to do. Well, China has just shown us that they're ready and they can go on further and they can expand their technology on the moon as well.
Well, it's getting more exciting as the day goes on. Yuguang. So we know Chang'e-5 also have some samples. Now we have some new samples from the surface of the moon. Tell us how far, anything new we have found from those samples?
Oh, well, you see that for the past 3.5 years, our scientists has already very great discoveries by studying the samples get back by the Chang'e-5 mission. That we've already found the substances, the mineral that never exist on the Earth. It has already been named the Chang'e stone. And also, we've already changed the knowledge of human being on the volcanic activities of the moon. You see that, as our other guest has already mentioned, studying the moon is extremely important, not only for the scientific research. You know that the moon and the Earth is a whole system called the Earth-Moon system. So the studying of the evolution of the moon, the history of the moon, is also extremely important for us to enter the history of the Earth and then enter the history of the solar system. And only at this point we can have a right prediction of the destiny of the solar system of the Earth and of the human being. So this is the meaning on scientific research. On the other hand, you've already mentioned about the what we can be found in these samples. I can tell you that we've already found water in it. And you know that in future, I have already told to the media many times that today, also as other guests has already mentioned, we are now in the stage from the exploration of the moon to the exploitation of the moon. In the future, in the near future, we can utilize the resources on the lunar surface.
Okay, I mean, Martin, exploitation of the moon, what can we do? It seems like there's a lot of possibilities, especially with the discovery of water, let's say.
Well, the discovery of water and reasonable quantities of water through the various missions is really important. The reason for this is that once we have water in situ on the moon, it means that by using solar energy, we can create oxygen and hydrogen. So that is clearly important for sustaining sustained human habitation on the moon. It's also critically important for producing fuels. And that means that for the first time, we can envisage not having to bring everything from Earth to the moon in order to be able to support a human settlement on the moon. We can use the resources that are there in order to be self-sustaining. And this is important, again, for two reasons. First of all, the moon is a stepping stone in the future to Mars, and we have to be able to develop these techniques if we're going to have long-term human occupation on Mars. That's absolutely essential. And secondly, some of the development that we will do to be able to exploit these resources on the moon will have some feedback onto how we manage our resources on Earth, because the technologies that we will develop for the lunar sustainability will have benefits back on Earth, and we'll be able to improve our recycling, possibly our energy balance and so forth on Earth. So it's really important to be able to find out what resources are on the moon, what we can use and how we can benefit from them, not only for the lunar applications, but also feeding back to Earth and then forwards onto the future exploration of Mars.
Mm-hmm. Well, Martin, so far, what do we know about the moon? Is there anything new, like, which facilitates us, in our understanding of the origins of the moon, of course, the relationship, the evolution of the Earth, as Yuguang mentioned, of the solar system? Or is that something we are looking at the new samples?
Yeah, it's something that this is something that undoubtedly these samples will help us with. I am not an expert in this particular field, but as I said earlier, the structure of the far side of the moon is very different from the near side. And we need to understand what the geological makeup is of the lunar far side, and that will give us some indication as how the moon was formed. And that will give us an indication and a better understanding about the formation of the Earth and indeed how the early solar system itself formed. And because the far side is so different from the near side, these samples are really critical in their first steps of making a better understanding.
Mm-hmm. Well, Stacy, earlier we mentioned about many countries are aiming at the moon exploration. For example, you also mentioned about the U.S. Artemis mission. They are planning to send a human being to the moon. As early as 2026. NASA Chief Bill Nelson is reportedly appearing, to cite China's space progress as the driver for the U.S. The new interest in the moon. People are talking about, they say, in fact, there's a risk, as Nelson said. Is that a risk? Are you any concerned about the risk or competition? Would love to have a cooperation probably for the entire humanity to do a better job in terms of exploration.
Some people would say that yes, there is a space race, but I consider myself as one of those people who does not see it as a space race. Why? Because we have so long been developing our space program separately, right? China and the US, they've never had really a space project in the recent years. together. So saying that it's a space race, yeah, sure. If the US manages to fly to the moon and have people on the moon, of course they're going to be first again in this millennium to do so. However, I feel like sometimes the reasons behind going to the moon and going to space are different, right? Because for China, there's a lot of exploration. We're talking about finding out what the moon has been made of. We're talking about using the samples to create technology and formula to build on the moon. Because again, when we're taking samples of regolith, we can also study them here to see if we can make bricks from them, build buildings from them, right? Or somehow utilize it for, I don't know, creating water. And Artemis is about sending 4 new humans to the moon. First, they're going to orbit the moon, then they're going to land on the moon. And also, I don't know if you've followed, but recently there was a project which was called Dear Moon, where an artist from Japan wanted to fly artists to the moon for inspiration, to inspire the new generation, or to inspire everyone on the moon. Oh, on the Earth, sorry. That didn't happen. That got canceled, unfortunately, and a lot of people have been looking forward to that. So we're seeing that there's a tendency. China announces a mission, and we've seen success, and we're yet to see the U.S. success. And I think only once the U.S. has sent people to the moon, we might be talking about a race or a competition. But before that, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. So, Marty, you're trying to step. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, seems there's a freeze. Let's turn to Yuguang. You think China is in race with the U.S. or U.S. is in race with China here?
Well, I also agree with Steady that that at least China don't think this is a race or competition. We've already either from the official announcement of China's government or from the employees from the industry or from the private company, we mentioned many times that China have its space program according to its own need. So you can see that the schedule of manned lunar program is that before we will walk on the moon before 2030. As you already mentioned, that the United States, actually speaking, their original schedule is to walk on the moon just this year. But the delay is because of their own reasons, not because of the competition or race. I know that many politicians in U.S. mentioned that there is a race between China and the U.S., but we don't think about it is true. That we just develop our space technology to promote the development of our high-tech field and to benefit our national economy and our daily life. And also, as Daddy has already mentioned, to help the young people to get their interest to the science and technology. But we don't think that we should get first to walk on the moon at this century. We just hope that we can have more friends in other countries to go together to the moon to share our knowledge and also share the returns of our technology to benefit the whole human being, including that we will have our international lunar research station. Many of my friends from other countries, especially from the space agencies, has already joined this program. And I hope that in the future, that this is really, really meaningful because the international cooperation can reduce the cost for a certain country and also reduce the risk. So this is, I believe, inevitable trend for the all countries, not competition.
Not competition. Martin, go ahead, please.
And to add to the comments, because they're absolutely correct. I'm not sure there's a space race, but we should remember that humans tend to develop most quickly when there is a little bit of competition, and it's inevitable that there's national pride on all parties, irrespective of which country it's doing, and that sort of edge of competition drives innovation and helps stimulate progress. So no, it's not a race, but a little bit of friendly competition, as well as, most importantly, having cooperation to get the best benefits out of the missions, I think is just part of human nature.
Mm-hmm. Well, Stacy, earlier you mentioned about this, the manned mission of Artemis, to send human beings there. The U.S. led a group of countries, in the 41 of them, I believe, and China, Russia, and other countries are also cooperating to have a crewed mission before 2030. How are they different? How are they similar?
So they are different in the countries which are signatory to the both. And of course, they have a different meaning to them because, for example, if we're looking at Artemis, they already have the 4 first people to fly to the moon. They are men and women, they are US citizens and from Canada. But when we're talking about the possible Chinese, Russia, and other country cooperation, we're talking about, I think, a difficult process where all the countries will contribute both to technology and to the team and to the crew that's going to fly. Because we know that China and Russia are 2 very strong spacefaring nations, and there is a lot of technological exchange and a lot of scientific research happening in between. So I would assume that the mission that we're going to see between our countries is going to be different, and it's going to be not about being the first on the moon, because obviously people have been to the moon already. It's going to be going to the moon together, which is also a very strong message and a very important one. And when we're seeing the countries that are aligning with China and Russia, we're talking about anyone within the countries, almost anyone, being possible to go to the moon. So that opens up even more opportunities for the youth. So yes, we're going to the moon together, and anyone can join.
Mm-hmm. Well, Yuguang, you earlier mentioned about this, Chang'e-6 basically is cooperating with other participants from different countries and regions. For example, this time around, Chang'e-6 carried 4 payloads developed through international cooperation. Scientific instruments from France, Italy, and the European Space Agency, ESA, were also on board the Chang'e-6 lander. Tell us more about the future of the plan, the sample. I believe the sample will be shared very soon, right?
Actually speaking, we already shared our samples of the Chang'e-5 mission to other countries. For instance, we give the lunar samples of Chang'e-5 as a gift to France when the president of France visited Beijing. And also we give that as a gift, as national gift to other countries. So I believe that in the future, maybe this will happen to the samples of the Chang'e-6. And also you already mentioned of the cooperation. Actually speaking, this Chang'e-6 mission is a very high-level international cooperation among all the lunar missions of China. You know that in the future, we will also continuously get the help from other countries. For instance, for a deep space mission, including the lunar mission, we need the ground stations all over the world. So this time, actually, the Argentina plays a very important role in providing the space for us to set up a ground station in Argentina. It's very necessary for our lunar missions. And in the future, this will also happen to other deep space missions. Moreover, to have the payload from other countries for a space-capable nation is also, it is already formed this habit for every space-capable nations, almost no exceptions. So I believe this will continue to happen.
Mm-hmm. So Martin, cooperation in a sense is a must. I mean, you do need, it's almost like a mission impossible for any single country to complete all the missions there.
Well, I think exploration of Moon and then later Mars, it's like a jigsaw. You have to have a lot of different components all coming together in order to support it. Now, each country needs to develop its own levels of expertise in order that it can contribute and play a part of the bigger picture. So I'm sure that in the future, we will have considerable cooperation and sharing of resources and approaches, and everybody supporting each other.
Mm-hmm. Briefly, Yuguang, what's the next, step for China? Maybe Chang'e-6, Chang'e-8, and even the crew.
Exactly.
Briefly.
So the Chang'e-7 and the Chang'e-6 will form the basic configuration of our International Lunar Research Station, and this will be the important mission for the 4th phase of our lunar exploration project.
And so we are on track to send humans, let's say, the manned mission before 2030.
Exactly. So we hope our astronauts can walk on the moon before 2030. But before that, we will have technology demonstrations.
So there's still a lot to be done there. Well, with that, we come to the end for today's show. Many thanks to our guests. You can also watch us on the CGTN app on YouTube. Thank you for being with us. I'm Xu Qinduo. See you next time.